Okay, so we're ready to finish applying the border onto our little sample. I just want to go over one thing again real quickly, and that is when you are measuring for these mitered corners, the inner point of the corner that you are actually going to be marking that 45-degree line on is whatever the distance is between this point and this point. So for example, if mine was going to be 8 inches, and I'm not sure that that's what it is actually on here, it's more like about a 9-inch. That line is radiating exactly out from that 9-inch point toward the outside edge for your 45-degree angle. And that's the same for all the 4 corners. It's really important that you do some real precise measuring so that your borders will come out properly sized, okay? So in the book, they do recommend that we use this stitch that I have up on my machine right now, and it is in the satin stitch mode, and it is stitch number 10. The one thing that they have asked us to do in the book is that we would use our vertical mirror image, and we're going to stitch this out so that the curved edge of this little design is going to be extending out into the center of our embroidered panel here. I've chosen this kind of a pinkish purple orchid color thread. I used it on the little mermaid for her little flower that's in her hair, and that's what I'm going to do my decorative stitching in. So probably what you are also going to want to do is pick a fabric or a thread, excuse me, that's going to be something that's going to show up real pretty, and that way your applique is going to be decorative as well as functional. Okay, so here we are ready to go. One of the things that I'm going to have you just realize that is that sometimes when we're using decorative stitches like this, which has a very distinct pattern to it, when we are actually stitching them out on a given length, it may not come out exactly right when you start approaching this inner corner. And so, you know, just kind of gauge that distance a little bit, and if you need to kind of start holding your fabric back or maybe pulling it through your machine a little bit faster in order to try to get those ends to match up, then that's an okay thing that we oftentimes have to do with a technique such as this. So we are on page 60 and 61 in our book, and page 60 will give you directions on doing that mitered corner frame that I've been talking about, and then following that you're going to see the directions for sewing your decorative stitch onto this border. Like I said, you are going to be mirror imaging stitch number 10, and you are going to be adjusting the length on it to a 0.35, and I think they're going to have us elongate it. Yes, they are. We're going to elongate it 2 times. Okay, so we're back to that same kind of a configuration that we were doing with all of our little decorative fish parts. So there we have it, and I think actually what I'm going to do, they suggest using the regular F foot, which is the one that has the red mark on it. I didn't get mine out in preparation for this because I just kind of thought that I would probably use my open toe foot. I think I'm changing my mind. I am going to switch to that foot. I think that would be a good idea, because what we're suggested to do is to line up the edge of our fabric with the red line that's on our presser foot. So that might help make it a little bit easier, keeping things a little bit straight. Okay, and then we'll be ready to sew. Oh, I'm not connected. So here we go. We're going to line up with the red mark on the cut edge of our fabric, and we're going to sew our decorative stitch on all 4 sides. So I'll start sewing this, and then we will stop the video so that you can just catch up and do the same thing that I'm doing. Now, if there is a reason that you might not want to use this particular decorative stitch, you can go ahead and pick something else that you think might work just as well. This kind of has that sea life look to it, so I think it's a good choice. All right, so I'll just sew a little bit, and then we'll see you back at the next section of the video for another decorative stitch that we're going to be adding in here. So as you can see, I am keeping my red mark on the cut edge of the fabric, and I'm just sewing right along. I'm going to stop and take a look at how this is looking. Oh, it looks really cute. I think I'm going to finish this stitch pattern by hitting my lock stitch button and I'll show you what it looks like. And then I'll pick up at that same point and continue to sew my border. So can you see that there pretty well on the camera? Looks pretty cute, doesn't it? All right, so I'm going to finish sewing my border and you finish sewing yours too, and then we'll come back with another decorative stitch that we're going to add into our stitch sampler. Okay, see you soon. Okay, so my little underwater sampler is complete. And when I say complete, it's complete to the point that I want it at. So I just want to make sure that I tell you again that you are free to do whatever you want with this project. If you want to follow the directions in the book, it actually does give you the instructions for making this into a little quilted sampler, in which once you've done all your decorative stitching and you've added on your border with the decorative stitch applique on here, then you would put some batting and a backing on here and you would finish it like a regular little quilt. I did not choose to do it that way. Mine is, as I said before, is just going to sit inside of my sample book, and so I'm not making it into a little quilt. They did have you do 2 decorative stitches out in this border in the instructions. I chose to just do 1, and this is one of the stitches that comes out of the quilting menu, quilt stitch menu on the machine, and I'm just going to show you which stitch it is. It's this one right here, and I just did 1 row of it close to the edge of my border, and then I got my pinking shears out and I just pinked the edge of my sample. Once again, it would keep it from raveling or possibly getting too worn if I was to pull this out and show it off a lot. So that's how I chose to do mine. Theirs is a little bit different in the book, and you can do whatever you want. What I want to close off with though is just showing you that I did add in these decorative stitches along the bottom of my sample just to kind of add some greenery, and I'm going to show you the stitches that I actually chose to use in on my sample. Now what I would like to tell you though is that probably this would be the first step that you would most likely want to do before you started adding in all of your other fish and starfish and all of those kinds of things. Okay, so this is where we're going in decorative stitch category. The little fish that I used came out of the satin stitch category, and I'm going to open them up and show you what I finally used for my little school of fish. So in my fish category here, I call this my school body, but I started off by actually stitching the tails of these little fish first, and I hope that the camera can see that tail. This is what it looks like on the machine. So it's that little sort of a satin zigzag, and the stitch number on that one is, let's see, I think it was, gosh, I didn't even keep track of the stitch number. Sorry about that. Oh, it's stitch number 12. This is the setting that I changed it to. I left it at 9 millimeters wide. I shortened the stitch length down to 0.35, and I didn't do anything with the elongation on it. Okay, so that's what I did with that little stitch, and I stitched that first. So this is that part of the fishtail that you see right here. Okay, and then what I did is I stitched the fish body. So I called this one my school body, and there it is. It's the petal from number 4. The settings on it is that it is 8 millimeters wide, and it is a 0.3 length in the stitch length. And I'm just going to show you here that I also did not elongate it. All right, and I thought that that worked out really well. So the way that I stitched that out was I stitched the little tail first. I'm going to put this under the light so maybe it'll show up a little bit better. I stitched the tail first. So it starts at this point and it stitches, stitches, stitches to here. Then I pulled up, and I just did a bunch of those little tails all over. You can see here that I did a different tail. I just used the regular triangle on that one. And then I came back in, and with the body, I just stitched the little body starting at the point of the tail and in this direction. So I stitched in this direction. Okay, and I just scattered those little fish all around. They are actually part of my favorite part of that whole setup. So these little squiggles that are right in here, I got out of the quilting menu. This stitch right here, was that the one that I finally used? Gosh, I'm gonna forget because I didn't mark it down. Actually, I'm sorry about that. I don't think it was the quilting stitch. I think I stayed with the satin stitches, and it was this stitch here, number 23. And what I did with that one is I narrowed it down a little bit. Let's just say that the default on it is going to be 9 millimeters wide. I just varied it a little bit. I changed some of them all the way down to about 5 millimeters wide. And I also changed the stitch length on them a little bit. Some of them are down at about 1.8. Some of them are up around 2.5, just to add a little bit of interest in them. And I just made little squigglies out of my green thread for that. And then these here are also in the stitch satin stitch category, and it's actually this stitch number 20 right here. And what I did with stitch 20 is that I changed it quite a bit. So I've got 3 different elongations that I used for that one. These ones here aren't showing up very well because they got kind of hidden underneath my border, but the original one was just the regular without any elongating. This one here was elongated 2 times, and this one here and here were elongated 3 times, just to make some nice long little branches. They came out pretty good. I like those quite a bit. And then the final one is this little squiggle thing here. That stitch comes out of Decorative Stitches Long, and I think it's number 2. Yep, it's number 2 here on the screen. And again, I just played with that stitch a little bit. Some of them I stitched out at the regular 9 millimeter wide. This is one stitch that you're going to have the ability to flip it both vertically, which means you can flip in this direction. Okay, see that? But you can also flip it horizontally, and so you can get some different effects using that. So what I did with that little swirly stitch is that following stitching that, I went back into the straight stitch category, and I just followed the line back down again just to give it a little bit more oomph, just with the straight stitch, so that the stem on it looked a little bit more obvious. So that's basically what I did with my Sea Life sampler. And you know, I may come back in and I may add in a couple of more fish or something later on, I don't know. But anyway, just have fun with your project. And the other thing that I should say about this is those of you that had signed up for my class that I was going to be teaching in March at the Sewing Center was going to be about decorative stitches, and we were going to be using this very same kind of a technique to decorate a notebook cover. Remember that? Well, that class didn't get to happen. And many of the things that are in that book that we had to buy for that class, that you had to buy for that class, are very basically the same kind of thing, just looking at your decorative stitches with a fresh eye. You know, it's not just having to put them along a straight line, or, you know, trying to do borders and that kind of thing with them. Using them as motifs, you can get some really fun effects. And anyway, play along with it and have a lot of fun. I'm hoping that I see some really great projects coming from all of you ladies. Okay, so that's it for now, and next time we get back together, we'll have another fun project for our 15,000 Club. Have fun, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.